not here that you were hoping we were going to be covering today? Okay, most of you guys are here for editing, I assume, right? Yeah. Cool. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about video editing. So, like everything we've been doing in Kaltura, for the most part, we're starting all of those workflows from Canvas, in particular, going to the My Media button within Canvas, and we're going to go ahead and look for our video. In this case, say it was that first video embedding a video. Just click on the video title, and we brought into the video. Instead of clicking on Actions Edit like we normally would, we'll be doing an Actions and then the Launch Editor button. Once we go into Launch Editor, we're going to have like a new program basically load right within Canvas. Now, I want to clarify, this isn't like Kaltura Capture where you actually have to download software and do all of that install. It's nothing like that. It's all web-based, and it's super cool because it's all right within Canvas. So you don't have to load anything in a new tab. There's no cookie problems or anything like that. We're doing our video editing now right in Canvas. Let's talk about really quick, what can we do with our video editor? And it's not, if anybody is familiar with maybe using Camtasia in the past, the Kaltura editor is not Camtasia. Camtasia is going to do a lot of other pretty things. But what we've come to learn is when we're doing our video editing, especially for just lectures, there's really only a couple of things that we really need to do. And that's what Kaltura is going to solve our problem for. So Kaltura is going to allow us to trim videos. And in other words, trimming a video, if we want to take off the beginning of a video or the end of a video, that's what we refer to as trimming. So if you want to get rid of the beginning of your recording where you're still opening up PowerPoint, getting yourself settled and getting your notes ready, that's something you'll very easily be able to do. And that's what we're going to go over today. Secondly, you're able to slice videos. And slicing is basically just breaking them up into smaller pieces. So that way, if you wanted to delete a video clip in the middle, if you want to delete like an oops, I call them, in the middle, you can do that within the Kaltura video editor. Finally, what you're also able to do in the video editor is very basic transitions. And by very basic, I mean you can fade out to black and that's it. But again, for the most part, anything that we're trying to do, especially if it's like those repetitive, just the weekly lectures, that's probably going to suffice. If it's not, that's what we have the studio for. And this doesn't necessarily even take place of the, in place of the studio. Those are just things that we want to help you do that more editing. So in a second, I'm going to jump over to the demo portion within Canvas. But before I do that, again, this is the video editor screenshot that you'll see that we're all going to see in a minute. I just want to go over the controls here so it's a little bit easier for you to read. So going in order, on the left-hand side here, our toolbar, there's a few different buttons. We're only going to be worrying about really one, if not two of them today. But just so you know what they are, number one, that this is where you would get into the video quizzing function of Kaltura. If you want to learn more about that, we have a whole video dedicated to just that. It's about 15 minutes where you can learn how to create quizzes right within your videos. Then you have your editor. That's where we're going to be spending most of our time today. Number three is Hotspots, which I'll go over towards the end. 4, help. By help, it's really just if you want to pull that up and you start getting really good at your video editing, there's a couple of keyboard shortcuts where if you're into that and you find that helpful, it can make things a little bit faster in your workflow. 5 is kind of go back or exit. It's not the, we've gotten a few questions. Is this the undo button? It kind of looks like that. No, it's not. The undo button is over here, which I'll show you in a second. 6 is where we're going to, kind of touched on before. This is where we're actually able to make the edits. So this is where we're going to slice our videos and trim our videos. And that's this little bluish, light blue, teal color in the toolbar. 7 is where we'll be able to delete clips as well as do our transitions. And again, I'm going to demo this all, don't worry. And then we have our toolbars within here. And this is where we would be able to do, going from left to right, we could have restart all of my edits. If I was just not working very well and I made a bunch of mistakes, I could just kind of restore it to the beginning. And then kind of like Microsoft Word, I can undo what I just did. I could just redo what I just did, so on and so forth, as well as view the audio. And then this little triangle and the 2 triangles, that's supposed to represent mountain far away and mountain really close, if that kind of seems familiar. This is what allows us to zoom in on the toolbar. play, pause our videos is here as well. And that's what we'll go over where we get to the points in the video that we want to edit. And then at the top, we have save and save a copy. Again, equivocating that to Microsoft Word, saving versus saving as. I'm always the type of person after I make edits, I like to save it as a copy. That way, in case I didn't like what I did, I can go back. It's up to you how you want to make that work when you're trying to do edits, but makes sense. Okay. Let's dive in. All right, you guys seen Canvas? Perfect. So like I mentioned before, everything we start, we're going to start in My Media. And I uploaded this video a little while ago. It's just going to be a basic video, dummy video that we can use to play around with and edit. I don't mind if I make mistakes on this one. That way, if you have questions and you want to see what I'm doing and make like big mistakes, have no fear. Just bring up like what it is that you want to see. What does that button do? No problem. So like I mentioned before, we're going to go into Actions and we're going to go into Launch Editor. And we're brought into the video editor that we saw before. And I'll try and zoom in a little bit. You guys see that a little bit better now? Okay. So let me play the video. I'm gonna turn my sound off because it's not necessary. So you see in this video, I have like a nice little fancy intro going on right now. It's talking about using Zoom and Google Calendar. Let's pretend in this case, I didn't actually want that intro in there anymore. It's not applicable. It's not appropriate. I made a mistake. And I just want to remove it entirely. At the bottom, using that little teal toolbar that appears, we can see I have my little crosshair, almost like the cursor in a Microsoft Word document, appear on the timeline where we currently are. And again, I can even click and drag or click around different sections of the timeline to jump to different points in the video you can see. And when I click on play, that little scrubber keeps going across the timeline. So that's showing us where we are. The little blue going up and down, in case you're not familiar, that's the audio levels going up and down. And that kind of just makes it, if you know you have a lull in your video and you want to remove it entirely, that's where that can kind of sometimes be helpful. But like I mentioned, I want to go ahead and remove that beginning part of my video. So there's a couple of ways we can do that. If we notice here, I have this big yellow line, for lack of better words. I can, and when I hover over it, my cursor changes to, I have 2 arrows going each way. I can click and drag that little line and trim the beginning of my video to where I want it to be. And if you notice, when I start, I don't know if it's coming over on the screen, but when I start to get close to where I am on the timeline, it kind of jumps to that. So again, using our current example that we want to remove the beginning of the video, and if you're trying to remove, say, the beginning or an ending of a video, what we recommend doing is go ahead, hit the play button on your, hit the play button at the beginning of your video, let it start playing. And in a second, when we're at the point in the video that we want to have our video start, so say I want my video for students to start right here, I'm going to pause the video and we're going to put our cursor right there on the timeline. Make sense so far? Now what we're able to do, if I just click onto that clip, oh, excuse me, and we see this get changed, I can click and drag it to where I want it to be on the timeline. That's one way we can make our trim. Questions on that? Another way is through the snipping tool. And snipping, again, a little icon of the scissors, or splitting. In this case, that's what Kaltura calls it. If you've ever used Camtasia or iMovie, they call it the snipping tool. Excuse me. Another way that we can do it, if we want to split the clip up to 2 different clips, I can click on that little scissor icon. And now if we notice, we have 2 different clips at our disposal here. And this time what I can do is just by highlighting the clip, by clicking on it once, so I have that little yellow box going around it, I can use this gray toolbar up here where I hover over the trash can and click on the delete button. And then now we've deleted that clip from our video. So now when we start to play our video, we go right into the actual portion that we wanted. Just like we could do that on the front, we can also do that on the tail ends of our video. And so before, like I mentioned, a lot of times, especially when we're doing our lecture, maybe we want to crop out the portion when we're turning off PowerPoint and pulling up our notes and going away just to make it a little bit cleaner. I'll play my video and say, this is where I want my video to stop. I don't need to show the rest of that video clip. Same deal again. I can either click on the split icon or I can just click in my video clip again. I get that yellow bar and I can click and drag that to where I want the video to end. Once I'm satisfied with that, I can also then I can save my current progress, or I can save this as an additional copy. Like I mentioned before, whenever I'm making edits to my videos, personally, I like to save a copy of the video. That way I have it, my original one, just to go back to in case I make a mistake. And so I'll just rename that edit version 1. Another example of when we might want to use that snipping function, like I mentioned, say you have a section in the middle of your lecture that you want to cut out entirely. Maybe it was when you started going on about a topic that you actually didn't want to go on, or you just made a mistake. You don't have to stop and restart your recording, right? Through the power of editing, we just remove it entirely. Pro tip, if you're doing your lecture and you make a big mistake and you just want to give it and you want to remove that and you know that that's going to happen, give your second like a 2 or 3 second pause where you're not talking. And 3 seconds is actually a lot of time if you think about it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Because, like I mentioned before, if we zoom in on our timeline using this little function here, that little blue bar, kind of the mountain going up and down, this is our audio. And so if I have a big pause in my video where I made that mistake, that can be a good visual indicator of, hey, here's where I want to go. And let's say I want to remove this entire clip in the middle here and just show it when it goes back to the calendar. So let's go ahead. Put my cursor where I want the video to, where I don't want, where I want to start removing that clip. I'll click on my pencil icon, not my pencil, my scissor icon. I'll keep clicking play. I'll just let this run for a second and see when do I want to pick up the video again? When don't I want to remove a clip? Okay, I want the video to still play here. So I'll click the scissor icon again. And now we see I have those 3 distinct clips on my timeline. I'm just going to select the second clip now. And again, click on the delete, the little trash can icon, delete. And now my video, that portion of the video has been erased. And you can see when I'm playing it now, it just jumps to that new one. That in a nutshell is trimming and slicing within the video editor. Questions so far on that?
Yes, the other 2 icons next to the scissors. I've been playing around and I've used those to trim the ends. Is that like, that's just the same thing as dragging the yellow bar across?
Same thing.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely same thing.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't do something weird.
I should have gone over that. There's just like any tool within Canvas or Kaltura, there's 2, if not 3 ways to go about things. Sometimes you might even find that easier. So what Gabrielle was saying is in her videos, if she wants to trim the end, she'll just let her cursor go to that point in time. And instead of playing around with clicking and then moving that little cursor around, if you just pause it right where you want it to end, you can click on the set out. If you're at the beginning of the video, you would click on set in. So it's kind of like open bracket, close bracket, right? I can just click on that portion now and it'll trim the video up until that point. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to go about that. other questions about editing video clips. And in essence, I want to make it clear, by the way, when it comes to editing, that's about it, even within Kaltura. It's very basic, like I mentioned, but it covers what you need to know. The one last thing that I didn't really touch upon is the transition, the fade in, fade out. So if you just kind of want to put a nice smooth ending on your video and you're not speaking anymore, I can put my cursor to where I want it to start fading out. And by clicking on the little icon that has the two endpoints and a line connecting them, I can set fading into the clip how many seconds and fading out. So if I want a 2-second fade out on my video clip, I'll show you what that looks like now. You can see it just slowly fades to darkness. Nothing necessary. I wouldn't necessarily say that it makes your lectures more interesting or anything like that, but it definitely does give it a more polished look. And so if that's something that you're interested in, that's something that you can have a lot of fun experimenting with. Any other questions on the video editor?
There's just one about merging video clips.
So like after you cut out the beginning of the clip, you mean? Whoever asked that?
That was Ali.
Ali? Like after I slice the middle of it? Like that type of deal?
No, adding an external video. I want to add a different video outside of this. Is it possible?
So right now it's not possible to take in extra pieces of media and overlay it. That is something like if you notice right now in our little media editor inbox, there's only one clip here. They are planning on adding that functionality, I believe, relatively soon. So possibly by the end of the summer, that would be available. But until then, no, you would still have to use something like iMovie or Camtasia, or send it to the faculty studio to ask to be edited for you.
Good. Thank you.
Good question. All right, so with that, then I'm going to dive back into PowerPoint really quick. And I lost my cursor. There it is. Okay, let's talk about hotspots. So for those who are not familiar, and for those who are maybe asking, why would we need hotspots in any of our videos with students? Hotspots can add kind of another layer of engagement, if you will, onto your video content. And so what I mean by that is in your video, you can actually embed a button essentially, where if students wanted to say, learn more about a concept, they could click on that button and they could be brought to a video, a URL, a web page that you designate that you want to bring them to. It can also bring them to a certain point in time in that same video. So for example, say our lecture for this week is 15 minutes long, and you're going to cover parts 1, concepts A, concept B, and concept C. Well, maybe the students plan on going back and rewatching the same video clip over a couple of times, or they want to maybe drill down onto one of those 3 concepts a few more times. Using hotspots, you can actually add basically like an interactive table of contents. So in other words, at the beginning of your video, we can have 3 buttons appear on our video, where students, if they just click on that, then they can jump to concept B, or clicking on that, they can jump to the 3rd part of the video. So the way that this looks within Kaltura, you're still seeing PowerPoint, right? Let's try that again. You seen Canvas again? Beautiful. So let's go back into our same video before that. We're just talking about how to use Zoom and Google Calendar. So I'll go into click on the title of the video. I'm going to click on Actions again, and we're going to launch Editor. Same deal, same thing that we just did last time to get to our hotspots. And if you remember before on the left-hand side, that's when I had mentioned we have our video editor and our quizzing. This is when we're going to experiment with the 3rd button here called Hotspots. Let's go ahead and click on that. And same look overall, right? We have our timeline at the bottom. We have our play and pause button. We have our little big triangle, little triangle for our mountains to be able to zoom in and zoom out on the timeline. And now here on the left-hand side, we have a button that says add hotspot. So let's experiment and see what does this do. So I'm going to go over kind of 3 different hotspots we'll add. And by the way, I feel like whenever we do this session, I say the word hotspots like 7 times, and it's such an awkward word to say. So if I'm making a grimacing face, and Corey's laughing at me, but she knows the same thing. It's weird, right? And it's not something we use interchangeably every day. So let's go ahead and click on the button, add hotspot. And for this example, I want to have the user have a link to, hey, if you're watching this video and you want to open up your Google Calendar, click this button and it will open up Google Calendar. So the text will just say, click to open Google Calendar. And the URL will be calendar.google.com. And done. So if we see at the top left-hand corner now, we have this little button, square, but not even a button. It's a little square box that appeared that doesn't look all attractive and is kind of blending in. And the text doesn't even fit on it. So let's click on it. And if you notice when we click on it, we get all of those dots going around, kind of like a PowerPoint slide, right? If we had an image. And so I can click and drag different aspects, different one of those boxes here, and rearrange the size of how large I want this hotspot to appear. And so that looks okay. If you notice, I can also click on advanced settings. And on my left-hand side pane here, adjust, where I have a lot more controls now. So if I scroll up and down, I can see my first off is text, color, and style. So that text isn't really working for me. So I want it to stand out a little bit more. So I can say bold it. Now that looks a little bit more presentable. I can also change it to stand out a bit more. So if I want to change that to something like kind of lime green, that way it stands out on the screen a bit more. I can also adjust the color that the button appears. So if I want that to stand, again, just kind of blend in a little. I'm picking like such ugly colors, by the way. I don't know why I'm going with this route. All right, you can at least see it now, and it's very obnoxiously colored. That way it draws your attention. It's probably not accessible, actually, now that I think about it, though. Change it to white. All right. At least now we're using accessible colors. I can also change the positioning to appear at different sections on the screen. I can also start getting really fancy, and if I want to make the text size appear bigger or smaller, and if I want to change that into kind of more of a button look as well, by clicking on the sliders here for roundness, you can see my little display here changes as well. All right, let's go ahead and play. And we see my little button has now appeared here. And it's still appearing here. Why is the audio playing? How do I stop that? And if I keep scrolling ahead, that button is still appearing there. Because by default, when you add a hotspot onto a video, it's going to be there forever, which is probably not what you're trying to do. You maybe only want it to appear for a couple of minutes. So if you notice here, right above at our timeline, right above it, I have click to open Google Calendar. And that's just the title of our first hotspot. And so what I can do, if I click on that button here, I see a familiar kind of appearance show up, where I have this big yellow circle with our double line and the arrows pointing in either direction. And if you remember, like we did when we were editing the video, when I clicked and dragged on something, I was kind of trimming it before, right? So in this case, when I can click and drag on this yellow line, that's going to be where I kind of want to stop and start the hotspot from appearing. So let's say I only want it to appear for the first, say, 7 seconds of my video. I can click and drag this all the way down now. And now let's start playing our video from the beginning, or at least more towards the beginning. Come on. I'm batting 1,000 here today. There we go. All right, let's start playing our video. And we can see after about 6.5, 7 seconds, this button should disappear, just like that. If I wanted to make it a little bit longer, I could choose to make it longer as well. I can also click and drag it along my timeline to different points in the video. So say I didn't want that button to appear at the very beginning of the video. I wanted to appear maybe after like 5 seconds. I can click. I can click and drag it on my timeline a little bit more to where I wanted that video to appear. I know I'm going to go over this a couple more times, but questions so far on kind of messing around with where the hotspots appear and how long they do on the timeline, because that can be weird to chew on at first. So, like I mentioned, when students go ahead and click on that link, it's going to bring them to Google Calendar. But maybe I want to give students an opportunity to jump ahead. Maybe they already know how to integrate and log into Zoom, or how to log into Google Calendar. I want them to learn how do you do that Zoom integration we talk about later in the video. And so let me take a look, and let's look and see where the Zoom integration actually happens and like when I'm making an appointment. It's right about here where I can see that video, that appointment get made. So if I look down my timeline, it's at the 55-second mark. So in my second example, let's use the case where at the beginning of my video, I want a button to appear for students that says jump to scheduling. So again, I'm going to click on add hotspot. The text of my hotspot is going to be jump to scheduling. That's not spelled right. And instead of me typing in a URL, I'm going to click on a time in this video. And if you remember before was the 55-second mark, or yeah, 55-second mark. So I'll change the time here to 0055. And if you're not sure where to put that, if I backspace everything, I see SS. That's going to stand for minute, second. So it's the 0 minute mark at 55 seconds. Click on done. And while I see the button appear there, but if I look at my timeline, it's all the way at the end kind of here. And I want it at the beginning. So all I have to do if I want to make that adjustment, I'll click and drag it on the timeline to the very beginning. And so now if I check the beginning of my video, I can see that button appear. And let's say I only want it to appear for the first 10 seconds or so, I'll trim it down. All right, let's click on save. Let's go check out and see what that looks like. So I'll exit my editor. I'll go back into my video and let's see what those hotspots look like now. So if I'll back it up. So now we see this button appear, the hotspot. So I'll click on jump to scheduling. And that happened fast, but if we notice at the bottom now, I jumped to the 55, 56 minute mark on the timeline. And back up again, I'll try that one more time. So we're playing our video. We see our button appear, jump to scheduling. I also have that second button appear, the click to open Google Calendar. If I click on the Google Calendar button, just like that, it'll open up my calendar. Or if I click on jump to scheduling, it jumps to the 55-second mark. That, in short, is adding hotspots, the two different types. External URL, in other words, a website, as well as a different point in this video. And if you wanted to do that interactive table of contents type of thing we talked about, so we had three parts of our video, we would just create those 3 hotspots and then line up the times. Questions on that? Am I totally boring you guys, or just totally overwhelming, or is it just we're cool? Okay, thank you, Julie.
Quick question. So embed a external URL and it takes students there, or like Google Calendar or something, will it automatically pause their video so when they come back, they're still in the same place?
I'm almost positive, but good question. Let's check that. So I'm gonna click on this and it's 5 seconds, say. Let's wait a minute. They paused it. Good question, though, but I wasn't sure about that. Yeah, because that would be a bummer. They go click on it and they don't realize that the video's been playing. Any other questions about hotspots? Do you guys think you might be using this feature? It wasn't one that it was one of those things that kind of just got thrown into a functionality of Kaltura, but you might find use cases for it. We heard from a lot of people, a lot of instructors say for like a quantitative problem, maybe they cover very briefly how to do it, but this is like a 200 level class. So that's not something you're going to spend a lot of time on, but maybe you want to link to a YouTube video that it shows students a little bit more in depth how to solve for that. That's a great use case that we've seen so far.
I just tried it out, John, while you were talking in one of the videos I used for one of my asynchronous sessions. And I like that you can, because I put a lot of links in there sometimes. So students have to have my slides up while they're listening to my video. So I think that's really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. It's one of those things. I think you might realize that first you have absolutely no use for something like this. It's stupid and it's like YouTube, like why would I do that? But if you realize, like Heather, to your point, well, in my lectures, I also in the descriptions, I put like 6 links of what I want you to go check out. This is a great way to just make them more embedded and make students actually have to, watch the video in the first place too. So I'm going to jump back to PowerPoint and let's just start to cover our third and final topic of today, and that is editing captions. So as a reminder, and I think, yeah, everybody here has come to at least one of the the Kaltura basic sessions. One of the really cool functions of Kaltura that we've been excited about is that all of our videos now get captioned automatically using artificial intelligence, and it's cool, right? Only problem is bots are not as good as humans yet, and it's only able to do it at about 80%, 85% accuracy rate. So a lot of times, things that are affecting that accuracy, by the way, include volume, enunciation, background noise, sophisticated terms. That said, for what it's worth, by the way, we've heard kind of ancillary from instructors, biology terms, it sometimes has problems with, but medical terms, it can actually do pretty decent with sometimes. So fun fact for the day, go figure. But so if we want to go and make maybe slight edits to some of those captions in particular, while we don't expect you to go and recaption all of your videos and edit them manually, you might notice there's 1 or 2 words that it's doing a really poor job at getting properly. And you want to make sure students know the difference. Maybe if there's 2 words that sound similar, but mean very different things, and Kaltura accidentally flipped it at one point, that's something, and student brings you to your attention, that's something we would want to go and make sure we edit that caption to not throw students, right? So, like I mentioned before, and like we've always done, we're going to start in going to My Media, and we're going to click on either the little pencil icon here to go into edit, or we'll go into that, click on the title, Captions Editor. Once we go into there, all of our work before was done in the details pane. And again, I'll show this in a second. Instead of doing details, we're going to click on the captions tab, and then we're going to go into edit captions. And from there, and this is just an easier way of me showing kind of before and after the user interface, we'll be able to go and look for particular words. And so say originally it said of what it takes to write out our capture. I was talking fast. It was supposed to say of what it takes to run capture. I can just find the words, highlight them, and type whatever something new it was that I needed. For whatever reason, if I wanted to, I could even do this fine scrolling, this fine tuning of down to the millisecond of when does that caption appear on screen. So let's dive back in. For our last time today, we'll go in, go to My Media again. Click on the title. And this time, instead of going to Actions Launch Editor, we'll go into Actions, Edit. And at the top of our toolbar here, instead of being in details, we'll head on over to Captions. And we see the 2 caption files listed here. I don't know why it's appearing twice as 2 SRT files. A lot of times you'll see 2 files here. One will be an SRT file, and one will be something with a J, like it's not a JavaScript file, but something with the J. We don't have to worry about that right now. What we will do, though, is go ahead and click on Edit Captions. And once we click on Edit Captions, this is where we can go in and start to change around particular words. On the right-hand side here is where I'm going to have my play and pause. I got to zoom out a little bit here. When I click on play, you'll notice as the video is playing on the right, on the left, is it coming through like the little highlighted blue teal section? It's automatically scrolling throughout the video. So if I wanted to watch through the video and see if anything wasn't lining up, this makes it super easy. Maybe I have a grad assistant in my department that, this is a high stakes lecture. I really want students to make sure that everything is accurate. I hand this off to them to look at. This is a great way where it's not overwhelming to watch it, like write down what changes you need to make. You can watch it right within here and watch the captions go by. And let's say, instead of now getting started with our scheduling session, this was supposed to be section. I could change that word. And if we notice now, it gets updated in real time in the captions here. At the top, for something that will probably be a little bit more useful to you, I would say, is if you did see that something was done incorrectly, you can search the entire transcript of your video. So say I wanted to look up every time it showed me Zoom, and I was not actually saying the word Zoom. Let's say Kaltura made a mistake every time because I wasn't pronunciating correctly, and I meant to say Loom, the old platform we use sometimes. I can have Kaltura change every version of Zoom to Loom. So again, we're searching for all instances of Zoom and replacing it with Loom. I can hit the replace button. Might have been Zoom. And it is case sensitive, apparently, which I don't think Quilly and I knew until right now. But just like that, it now says here at the top, using the Loom integration for Google Calendar. And again, Loom when creating a new calendar appointment. I can, at that point, when I'm satisfied, click on save. I don't want to mess the AI up because this is a trained model. In other words, Kaltura is taking all of the videos across every campus at any college that Kaltura is at. If you're making changes, that's helping train the AI, which is great for everybody. But I don't want to confuse it, so I'm going to revert my changes and let's just get out of there entirely. Okay. Questions about editing our captions. So I officially broke you guys, it looks like today, since this was the least amount of questions I think we've gotten since, I don't know, ever, which might be a great thing or it might be a terrible thing. But either way, when questions do come up, please don't hesitate, like I mentioned, of course, to always please submit a ticket at first if we're not available during drop-ins that day or if drop-ins already passed. But as a reminder, drop-ins are still going on, as they will always be going on. While in addition to Canvas and Zoom, we're happy to also take Kaltura questions as well. And if you're starting to messing around with the editor, that's a great time to ask us for a little bit of help on there. Mondays through Thursdays, same ID as always. With that, in a nutshell, congratulations. You've graduated Kaltura school, making it through phases 1, 2, and 3. The last 2 series, one of them is not actually scheduled. It's just a video that we have up on using Kaltura quizzing. And then next week we have the 5th installment, which isn't necessarily a progression of new features, but Quayle is going to go over how you can use everything we've learned so far and leverage Kaltura functionality to create a lot more engagement now with videos in your courses. Okay. But with that, I mean, we have plenty of time. So if you have questions about Kaltura, either stuff that we went over today or other sessions that we've gone over, please feel free at this point. Stop the share just so I can see you guys. Please feel free to just jump in and ask them as they come up.
John, I have a small question.
Sure.
So when we upload a video, Kaltura video with transcript, it keeps us a huge space after the video. So for example, I'm uploading 2 videos. So the distance between those 2 videos, I mean, how can we remove those space?
Known issue.
Okay.
So believe it or not, it's actually not on the Kaltura side. It's currently on the Canvas side. The Kaltura is asking Canvas to play nice in the sandbox and allow them to edit some code, because what's happening, it's not letting it dynamically adjust, Ali. So you know how the transcript appears below?
Mm-hmm.
You know how that takes up additional pixel size?
Right, right.
So Canvas is not allowing Kaltura to use dynamic embed sizing.
Okay.
So in other words, when the student was to click on transcript, it wouldn't just move the whole page down. So Kaltura has asked for that permissioning from Canvas, and we are waiting. It's not just us, it's every Canvas school right now is being affected by that. So I'm hoping maybe by the summer, Canvas will stop being annoying and work with us, but we are aware. If it's really bothering you, I get it, because it does bug me as well. You've done some stuff in City Labs, right, Ali?
Yes.
So what we've done in some of our courses is we've created accordions on the page.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's kind of like video 1, video 2, video 3, or
Okay.
tabs even. That way it's not so much scrolling.
Okay. Thank you, John and Curly.
Of course. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead.